Good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. I see there's some people from in the middle, joining it from the middle of the night, which thanks for tuning in live. Normally, the Australian folks don't get to actually watch us until the recap, but I see there's somebody from New Zealand, so I guess it's a little bit later there. So maybe it's just early morning for you, not middle of the night. But good morning. Good to see everybody here. Yeah, thank you all for joining. I am looking forward to today. I have a couple of changes here. Oh, and I see Roger has already thrown in a super chat. Thanks. And the lights, I haven't quite tuned the lights for that yet, but the super chat does make a little glow down here. You can kind of see it there. That matches the color, and I can hopefully show that in a second. But thank you. This is a great crowd today. Looking forward to chatting again. If you're new here, welcome. And the way we do questions here, make sure if you have a question, drop it in the chat at any point, and I will just start going through the chat answering questions. But make sure you mention my name. So make sure you say @AaronParecki, and that will let me see it nice and big in the chat window here. Yeah, awesome. Great crowd, lots of European folks. I hope this isn't a terrible time for everybody else who can't join, but I do keep these up on my channel now. It's been going pretty well, so I figured people actually are watching them, and happy to leave them up. So let's, let me again, just thank you again for, let me again thank you for the super chat. And there it is. So yeah, first question of the day. This is so the super chat, if you, this one doesn't show anymore. This is H2R graphics, but the color of this super chat is actually like this green. And that the lights match the color of the super chat. So what's going on there is actually, I've got if this then that, ifttt.com. That's hooked up to my YouTube channel, and it watches for live streams. And when it notices that one is live, it'll start watching the chat, watching for super chats. And if it sees one, it'll grab the color. And then these are Philips Hue lights, which then change color to match. And I realized that I didn't really put these in a good spot for this, especially now that my wall is blue. This is like actually a blue wall. This is not just like, it wasn't a fake background before. This was my actual wall. But this is the light. Oh, this one's getting a little beat up. So it just throws that color on the wall. So I'll just leave this one up here. And now that'll be a little more obvious. Oh, jeez. Okay, everything's fine. You might also notice that my background is new. I'm working on setting this up. This is my new studio space. So I got the shelf in last week and put it together, and I'm working on throwing some decorations on there and stuff. So yeah, looking forward to seeing this come together. It's coming together nicely. The rest of the space in here is also coming together. I have a rug now, so I'm a little bit less echoey. Still not perfect, but making progress. Cool, let me take a look at the chat. Yeah, Photo Joseph is live now too. He's normally live Wednesdays at 10, and I go watch his stream. But he was busy this week on Wednesday, so he moved his to Tuesday, not realizing that I'm also doing mine Tuesday. So he is live now too, and I decided to just roll with it and do mine at the normal time instead of watching his. So if you have his up in the other tab, maybe you can keep track of both of them. And he's going through the chat as well. So yeah, so all right. And oh, hello, Anna from Brazil. So, and yeah, Zach's got both of our streams up. All right, so let's start taking a look at the questions. Oh yeah, the reason I was a little bit scrambling this morning, I mean, you probably couldn't tell because I just showed up and I'm live, but I was scrambling a little bit before going live because I, last week after the stream, did finish what I was working on, which was moving my companion, the controller that lets these Stream Deck buttons work, moving that over to a Raspberry Pi, so that instead of running it off of this laptop, I'm actually running it now off of a separate computer that's tucked under the desk. And that again just offloads more work from my main laptop. For some reason, Companion on my Mac, like it just eats CPU for breakfast. And I don't really understand why, but now it's eating the Raspberry Pi CPU for breakfast, and that tastes a lot better. So that meant that I had to recreate all my buttons, which look like, so it looks like this. This is the interface. And the really confusing part was that this is version 2 and my computer had version 1.4, so the export didn't even work. So that was unfortunate. So I had to go through each one, redo these buttons, and I was a little bit scrambling. So yeah. Now I have them here, and they are on this Stream Deck, which is now like a permanent fixture here, which is cool. So I don't have to worry about getting my laptop up and running with Companion because I don't run it all the time because it eats CPU. Where were we? Let's see if we have more questions. Oh no, H2R graphics is a little bit not great today. I just installed an update for it, and I probably should have maybe thought to double check. Shoot. Okay, bug report. Check this out. Look how weird this is. John, if you're watching, I can't read the messages anymore. They get cut off. I have to make it super big. So that's too bad. And I don't think I have a good way to switch over to my other chat method right now, unless you'll bear with me and let me set that up, which is really just YouTube live chat. Let's see, how is it? Live chat, and then I go replace the video ID. And this is the window. Okay, that's there. But now I have to drag it to the other screen. And that is going to give me some other problems because then my macros are not set up for that. Oh no, it's really not meant for that. Oh, sorry, this is Photo Joseph's live stream. I had it open too. Let's cover that back up. Okay, that's not gonna work. I don't have things wired up right for that. So I'm just gonna have to deal with this. So apologies in advance. This is how I am reading your messages now. I'm gonna try to do this. What I'm going to try to do is actually look at this one. Okay, rough start. I should have tested that before. Normally those things don't change that much. So, oops. Back to the window. All right. Well, that was a lot. All right, let's do this. So, oh, Michael, I didn't even notice. I'm sorry. I just breezed right past you. Thank you for the super chat. So, okay, question. If you're using all the HDMI inputs for cameras, is there a way to do H2R graphics or clocks or timers? I'm using media for an overlay, but it is a logo. It is a logo ID. Okay, so yeah, if you've got 4 inputs into your ATEM Mini, then those are that's it. That's full, right? So you've used up all 4. And there's no other inputs except for what you found, the still graphics player. So you're pretty much out of options there. One thing you can do is add another ATEM Mini, and it doesn't need to be a Pro because you're just going to be using it for the switching between other inputs, and you'll basically add 3 inputs that way. So like I've got on my desk here, so I've got the 2 stacked here, and what that does is means that I can run additional cameras in here, right? So I've actually got the secondary output from this computer, which is running the graphics, into this one. And then these buttons that I've got configured, the macro buttons, they actually run commands on both to do like change the output of this, and then also change the output on the main ATEM. So yeah, that's pretty much what you got to do. Cool. Thanks for the super chat. All right, where was I? Jay Oat says, great to join you. Really appreciate taking the time to run these live streams. How do you go about color matching cameras from different brands? I don't really. Right now, I've got two different brands. I've got the Lumix. This one's the Lumix, and then this one is a Sony. And I have spent zero time color matching them. So I'm just dealing with it. The reason that I haven't really worried too much about it is because the shots are so different that there's completely different things in the shots. So it's not too noticeable if they don't match. If they were both showing my face, I'd be more concerned about it. I might actually try. But yeah, they're different enough angles that you don't really notice that they're not exactly the same colors. Cool. If I connect two lavs to two different XLR inputs on my camera, will they both come through on the ATEM? I'm having problems getting the second channel of audio to come through. So the ATEM does have a stereo input, so it does have two channels, and as long as your camera is outputting the stereo mics over, one over each channel, it should come through in the ATEM. The one thing you can check is, this one, in the audio interface in the ATEM software control, there's a setting in here, which is under the audio tab, and you can actually split any of the audio inputs into two separate channels in the ATEM. That way you're not just stuck with right and left. So like, I'm not using mic 1 on this. So like, if it's checked, then the left channel, now you can mix separately from the right channel. So different volumes, different effects, whatever. So that's pretty cool. If you are not getting the two channels coming through, then I would try to debug that and like plug that output from the camera into some other device and see if the two channels come through there. So yeah, that's where I would start looking into that. Rick says, have you ever experienced an audit from Google regarding the Google API? It's been an interesting experience and still ongoing. No, I've read about the process, and I have not actually attempted to publish a new public app since they started implementing that. But John did from Here to Record. So H2R Graphics, the chat feature, he had to go through a process of doing that to get the quotas increased, and he had some amount of luck with it. So it took a while, though. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Mark says, how to split USB-C out to record to the SSD while connecting to the PC. My hub didn't seem to work. Only certain hubs? No, none. That's not going to work at all. So the USB-C on the ATEM Mini is going to do either plug into your computer so that your computer sees it as a webcam, or it can host a USB drive, and it can't do both. So the reason is because it's like they're running in different directions. So your computer is either going to host this device, or the ATEM is going to host a USB drive, and you can't plug in a hub because then it's not clear who's hosting which thing. Not going to work. Pickle Jar says, have you installed the new fan on the Blackmagic Hyperdeck Studio Mini? Funny story. I brought it with me today to do that. I was going to do it on right before, and then I realized all my macro buttons were missing. So I have it here. I might do it after the show. Maybe if you ask nicely, I will do it live on the show, but I think that's probably a bad idea. So yeah, with any luck, I'm going to put this into work here soon because I want to use it I do want to use it in this workflow. Cool. Where was I? Is there a way, Marlon says, is there a way to do my own custom transitions with the ATEM Mini instead of the built-in transitions? Kind of. So the built-in transitions are going to give you like the, this little poor camera keeps overheating and shutting off. It has never done that before. This is the Sony ZV-1, and it's decided today that it is going to just shut off randomly. I wonder why it's doing that. I was going to show you the other angle. Maybe it's because... No? Okay. Weird. Well, the, what was I saying? Custom transitions. So I was trying to get that camera up so that I can do a transition. The transitions, come on. Oh, now it's just not even outputting over HDMI. I've never had a problem with this before. This is what I've been using for several streams now. Am I going to have to switch to my, go pull out my other camera? All right, that's too bad. Well, I'll switch between my computer and the camera. So the transitions you get are the mix, so fade, crossfade, right? You can do this, which dips through a color or a color or another camera. So I can actually, let's see, is there a way I can, now I don't have enough sources on here without that other camera. But, oh yeah, I can use color bars. So I can dip through color bars, right? And then you've got wipe, which is the one I use to open the show. And then there's also the DVE transition, which is like pushing it over. And that one you do have an option here of adding graphics to it. So see how like my logo went as the push? That was not a good transition to use for that. So those are the built-in ones. For custom ones, you can kind of like, if you can bring them in through other inputs. So that, let me show you what I'm doing here. So come on. Okay. Now what's going on? Now oh, I think I screwed something up with my, aha, interesting. I found a limitation of this. If you use the DVE for the transitions, you can't then use it for your upstream keyer. Good to know. So what I was going to show though, and that's going to make my face disappear if I do this. When you use the DVE transition, you can choose what to use as the thing that moves across the page or the screen. So what that means is that if you bring in graphics from an external source, like the Hyperdeck, playing a loop, or a computer that's generating graphics, that can be the thing that's doing the push. So if I switch that to my main camera, this is going to be a horrible demo. And then I'm going to switch my preview to the media player, right? So I've got my logo on, or my cover slide on the preview. I've got the computer on the program. I'm gonna have to disable my camera here. And then when I do the DVE transition, my face is gonna slide across the screen, okay? So what that means is that if that were a video clip that we're playing custom graphics, that would be a custom transition. Does that make sense? It'd take a while to get that set up right. To make it actually look good, but that is basically how you would do that, which is, I've never actually done it for reels, like for a reel production, but that is how you would do it. Hopefully that answered that question. Cool. Hisham says, any update on H2R features if you know? Well, one of the updates is apparently broke the chat So that's cool. Now he's been working on some other fixes though, that are fixing other features, which is great. If you are interested in following along with that, there's his Discord, the H2R graphics or H2R Discord. There's a channel in there for beta testers. So I don't have the link offhand, but if you just go look at his any of his latest YouTube videos about H2R graphics, there's a link in there to join. All right. See some other chatter in there, and cool. Okay. Where was I? Oh, great. Leaf blower. That's a new one. Rob Smith. Using the ATEM Mini, can't afford the Pro, having a huge problem with input latency in OBS, and I'm thinking of, instead of OBS, just use HDMI program out to capture device. Oh my God. Okay. Well, the garbage truck didn't make it today, but there's a leaf blower. So that's awesome. Yeah, so if you're seeing latency in OBS, it's probably because, wow, how bad is this? It's probably, now it's gone. It's probably because either the device is plugged into a hub. So if you can go directly with the USB-C cable to your computer, it'll probably help. Depending on the computer though, if the computer is not quite up to the task, that might be some of the latency. You will definitely get a more reliable, better recording if you record to a capture device though. So I'm a big fan of just removing the computer from the chain every time it's possible, like whenever possible. Like the only thing that my computer is doing right now is showing YouTube chat and giving me the view into YouTube Studio. Now I've even moved the Stream Deck buttons off of this computer because I don't want it to do anything. So yeah, that's what I'm taking a look at. But capture devices, what I'm talking about when I say capture device is like a dedicated HDMI recorder. So that's going to be like the Blackmagic Video Assist, but that's like $500. There's a couple of cheaper ones too, and those are just like, if it's a dedicated recorder, that's going to give you a better result. Oh, so Zeus says, to clarify what you said before, besides the 4 inputs, can you not add other cameras via USB, just still images? The ATEM Mini has no USB inputs for cameras. Like the only thing the USB does is output as a webcam or output to a drive. So yeah, the only video inputs you get are the 4 cameras and the media player. Cool. All right. Oh, that's a good point. Egon says, if you're having trouble hearing both channels, to help switch to the line setting. I forgot to mention that option, but if the other setting in here is the other setting in the audio tab is whether it's mic or line level. So again, you just want to make sure it matches. So if your camera is outputting mic levels over the output, which would be weird, you would set mic 1 input to microphone. If your camera is outputting line levels, set it to line levels. You definitely want those to match. Otherwise, you're either going to not hear anything, or it's going to be super distorted, or a lot of noise. Cool. Show G Production says, what are you using to display the applications? Nice way to engage the audience. Thanks. That is a custom JavaScript thing I wrote. And it is, I have not made it public yet. It needs a little bit more work, and I haven't had time to spend time on it. I haven't changed the code since I wrote it originally. But the other problem with that is just like H2R graphics chat, YouTube chat, I need to figure out a way to deal with the API of like the rate limits and the policies that Google has around that. They're very strict about like giving out access to the YouTube API, and they put serious limits on it. Actually, I just realized that it's still running in my other tab. So I'm just burning through my API credits right now while it's sitting there. So it pulls every like 5 seconds or so to look for new chat messages. And every time it does that, it eats a couple of API credits from Google, and you get 10,000 a day by default. And that's enough for like a couple of hours at that rate. And if I let other people use it, then everyone sort of shares that bucket of API requests. And I would need to apply for an increase, and I have to go through that whole approval process. And that's a whole thing, including I then have to have like a privacy policy about what I store so that Google can review it. And the other way to handle it is to let users, you, go get your own API keys from Google and drop them in so that you're in your own rate limit bucket. And I could do that. It's just the instructions for describing how to let someone do that are not pleasant, to say the least. Google does not make that easy to do. So I have not yet gone through the trouble of either going through the approval process properly or writing up the instructions or deciding how I want to actually do that. So, but yeah, I will eventually probably either just put the code up on GitHub so people can do it if they want to themselves, or figure it out. But again, I have too much other stuff going on right now. I do not have time to deal with that. And in the meantime, I get to use it and it's fun. Cajoling Technology says, I just want to let you know I chose you over Photo Joseph's live stream. Thanks. No tequila today though. I have a lot on my to-do list the rest of the day. Zach says, Photo Joseph spent 10 minutes talking about applying makeup to remove all his shine. Yeah, I need to actually start doing that because I'm about to spend most of August filming a whole bunch of videos. So I need to learn makeup because that's a thing that I have not done before. And since I'm going to be on camera for hours filming videos that are going to be watched for even more hours, I should probably make sure I actually look decent. So yeah, he has some good videos about that though. So I'm going to go rewatch his. Roland says doing the Hyperdeck surgery live would be awesome. Thanks. Oh, and I just noticed new super chats. Thank you. Let me go pull these up. Itty Corey says, those are sexy background lights. Let's see them change. Thanks. Somehow I didn't even catch my eye when it did change. But thank you. Appreciate it. Very generous. And Marlon says, thank you for your help. Also, how many layers of graphics can I do? I know H2R, I can do logo, message, ticker, clock, and chat. But can I do more than just one without H2R graphics? Okay, so let me explain how this works. What's going on with H2R graphics is, let's see, let me pull up this one again. And I'm actually going to turn off, I'm going to turn oops, not that one, turn that one off. Okay, so what I've got in my other window on my computer, let me see if I can actually navigate to this. There are two, so there are two HDMI outputs on my computer. And what I've got is, so the HDMI out that you're seeing, like my computer screen that I'm navigating and looking at the chat and stuff, that's the one that's feeding into my main ATEM Mini. The other HDMI output is plugged into the other ATEM Mini, or you could also just plug it into a second port on your ATEM Mini. You don't need to for that. But this window, this is just like a window that pops up with from here. So if you click on Chroma, it pops open this new window, and let me show that again. This is what H2R Graphics is displaying stuff into, right? So it's just like a little window here. So you can go and add like all sorts of stuff, right? You can add a lower third or ticker. You can add a timer that let's count down to 11. You can add a lower third, or in my case, an upper third, logos, whatever, right? But all it's doing is it's just putting everything onto this little window. So then I drag this over to the other monitor. And let me see if my other camera turns on now that I've had a chance to think about what it's done. Yeah, so if I drag this, so see it's up here. If I just drag it over to my other monitor, which is actually here, and I make it full screen, now this is what the ATEM sees, which means if I go back over to my my software control interface, the downstream keyer is set to that ATEM. Sorry, you can't really see it, but the downstream key is set to the ATEM, and then I can turn it on. And because it's keying out the black, it's actually a Luma key, the black is transparent. So then all the graphics that I've put on the screen show up. So that's why you can like overlay multiple graphics using H2R graphics, because H2R is just sending one feed into the ATEM, right? And then it's just putting stuff on the screen with a black background. So that's really what's going on there. And let me get rid of the timer. Okay, so that's how I have it running most of the time, right? And if you, where did that chat go? So if you wanted to do more than one without H2R graphics, then what you need to do is like you'll need to use multiple HDMI inputs and then use your upstream and downstream keyer. So like in this scene right now, you can see I've got my computer screen is the bottom layer. The downstream keyer is the chat or H2R graphics, and that's the last thing in the chain, or the top layer or bottom layer, depending on how you want to think about it. And then that middle layer is the upstream keyer, which is where my camera is. So the ATEM is putting my camera, squishing over to the corners, scaling it down, and then that's the layers. Those are the layers that are built up. So the ATEM Mini has just those two, right? It's got the one upstream keyer and one downstream keyer. So you're really just limited, and the downstream keyer can't be scaled. So what you're limited to is one video feed that can be resized and one that can be made transparent. So without bringing in all your graphics on a single HDMI input, that's what you're limited to. There's other programs like H2R Graphics that can do similar things, other graphics generators. So that's another way, but it's the same principle, right? It's creating one video feed that the ATEM sees that then is what the ATEM uses as the downstream keyer. So hopefully that answers that. All right. Let me see where I was. I think I was up a little bit higher in the chat. All right. Roland, why do you think Blackmagic limited the audio inputs to 16 bits? Sound quality is really an issue, but it complicates sound quality isn't really an issue, but it complicates post-production. That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. I guess because I guess normally you'd want 24-bit audio, but I haven't really used the ATEM for recording stuff that I'm going to edit later. I'm mainly using it for these live streams, which YouTube is recording, so technically it is being recorded, but I don't edit them later. And I also, of course, use it as a webcam into all the video conferencing softwares for all the live events. The videos that I do edit, when I produce edited videos, I'm recording those on totally separate devices, right? So I'm recording them onto the camera's SD card or an external HDMI recorder, and I'll even usually record the audio separately. Like I just got the Zoom, oh god, I forget the number, F6, F4, F6, the little 32-bit one. So I've been playing around with that, and that's super cool. So, but yeah, that's like totally external. And I don't know, it just hasn't really been a problem for me because I don't use the ATEM Mini as a recorder for videos I'm going to edit. And I suspect it was just cheaper and easier to make it 16-bit and good enough for most things. Cool. Okay. Let me keep going in the chat. Zach says, you look decent. Oh, thanks. That must be in regards to the makeup comment. Yeah, I guess the lighting in here is, I don't have like a huge shine, and I just biked over here this morning too, so I'm all sweaty. So that's good. But still. I feel like I should put in some amount of effort. Show G Production says, what method do you advise your guests to use that join your live stream as a guest? How do you bring them into the ATEM? This is an excellent question, and I haven't yet found the ideal solution. And you may remember an early live stream I did where I brought John from Here to Record in over Skype, over NDI, and it did not work because we did not try it ahead of time. And the testing that I did, I forgot to actually test the audio. So the video worked fine, but the audio didn't work. And that was that was using the BirdDog NDI to HDMI converter, which is apparently just not compatible with Skype. I've returned it, so I haven't actually checked if they fix it in a firmware update. But yeah, that didn't work. And I've been trying to find another option for that of NDI to HDMI converter, because then you can use Skype as your software to bring in the guests. The nice thing about that is the thing you're using to talk to your guest. So the way that it works with Skype is basically the remote guest becomes their own video feed. So you're not like screen capturing Skype, right? It's like that remote video gets turned into an input in the ATEM via NDI to HDMI. The problem with that is that you have to show the Skype logo or mention that you're bringing them in over Skype. That's part of the terms of service of using Skype in that context, which sometimes you just don't want to have the Skype logo on the guest screen. But that is why you see the Skype logo in all of like the live TV interviews, because you know that they like, you know, if they could pay to not have that show up, they would, because they have unlimited money. But that's just part of the terms of service, because then Skype gets to be known as the way you bring in remote guests. So the nice thing about that is that the actual video call is what is showing up on the stream. So other options are if you don't need it to be live, you just tell your guests to record themselves with a nice camera, and then you FaceTime with your phone right next to the camera, right? So that you end up capturing the thing you're seeing is not what's being recorded, but then you can edit high quality video later. If you do need to mix it live, there are some other options, which I haven't done too much experimentation with yet, but I keep looking around for ways to do this. There would be a way, for example, to like, if somebody else has an ATEM Mini Pro, they could stream to you, and you could sort of like capture their feed. The problem is that you have to then account for the delays, and basically every other, like, unless it's a live video conferencing app like Zoom or Skype, anything else that's going to be doing remote video over the internet like that, especially if it's higher quality, is going to have some amount of delay, which means you're not going to be able to use it as the way you're talking to the person. So I was actually just yesterday watching a video from Epiphan doing a demo of exactly this, where they had two people from Epiphan doing an interview back and forth, where they were talking to each other and showing stuff on the screen. And they were both, very high quality cameras and good quality video feeds. The way it worked was both of them were using Epiphan devices. These are also like $3,000 or $8,000 devices, so it's not something you can just throw around quickly. But both of them were independently pushing a video stream to their studio, which was running another one of these devices. And that is where it was then brought in and mixed. The reason it worked is because they also had a Zoom call going, and that's how they were talking to each other. So they had a separate person mixing the final program who was getting both feeds over the same delay, but the guests were talking to each other over Zoom where there's no delay. So I think that probably wouldn't work if you were trying to be your own host, because you would have to then you'd have to then compensate for the delay of your guest, which is going to be separate from the Zoom call where it's not delayed. So I think it'll take some real skill to pull that off. So yeah, anyway, that was a long answer. I'm sorry. That was all just to say that I'm still trying to figure out a good way to do that. I will say the one way I have been doing like streams with remote guests is we both have an ATEM Mini, and we use it as a webcam into StreamYard. And StreamYard is basically that's the thing that's pushing out to YouTube. So StreamYard then takes both webcams feeds, mixes them together, and then what's nice is if we're both logged into the StreamYard account, we can actually both screen share into it or control whose camera is live and deal with YouTube chat and things like that. So I wouldn't, that is, StreamYard is by far the easiest way to do it because it is just so simple, but it's a lot more limiting. You're limited to their layout options. You just bring a webcam in, which means if you have an ATEM Mini, you can actually bring some fancier graphics in, but that's the thing doing the encoding. So yeah, it's a hard problem for sure. Cool. Innovative Media says, a little late joining today. Well, thanks for joining. Good to see you here. Egon says, for some reason, YouTube doesn't allow me to use Superchat. Oh, well, thanks. Thanks for the PayPal donation. Appreciate it. And I will, well, the light is already your icon color. So there you go. Yeah, for some reason, YouTube Super Chat only works in certain currencies and certain regions. I don't really understand. But I'm glad you've been learning stuff. Show G Production says, looks like you're using 2 ATEMs. If so, why? Yeah, I use 2 ATEMs because, mainly because I want to be able to show you the multi-view of the ATEM. So like if I, it does 2 things for me. It lets me show you the multi-view so that I can show, let's see, where is my button for that? I think I lost it when I redid all my buttons. Oh, here it is. This one. So what did I just do? Is this right? Something's wrong. Something is keyed wrong. There we go. Okay. Apparently I'm missing an action in that macro. So what you're looking at now where you're seeing me talk is the multi-view out of the second ATEM. So that's the one that's behind my main ATEM, not doing the streaming. You can see it's not on air. It's not streaming right now. It's got my little test icon down there instead of my live. So this is, I've got my camera duplicated into both ATEMs so I can be in both. But I've also got an Apple TV, which is so I can use my iPhone as a camera if I want to. But it's also got my studio camera, so you can see the rest of the space in here. And then that third one is the chat or H2R graphics output. And then the fourth one is the Chromecast, which I haven't really used in this stream today. So it then also means that if I want to go and mess with settings on there, I can do that on the test ATEM and not worry about messing up the live show, which today I haven't actually done too much. I've just been messing with the live program. That's fine. Other reasons, because it does give me more inputs if I need to. So like my computer, I need 2 outputs from my computer. So I've got the computer window that you're seeing, like where my mouse is. And I've also got the chat showing up. So I need 2 outputs there, which would eat 2 of the inputs of the ATEM. And then my main camera, my wide camera. But then I wouldn't have any extras for like showing other things. But yeah, that's the main reason for the second ATEM. It works out pretty well. It's a little bit confusing to keep track of sometimes. I don't necessarily recommend everybody do that because it does make it a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Doris Reed says, I already know you probably did the green screen tutorial, but can you go through again step by step? We were having problems doing the green screen. Yeah, it's tricky to get the green screen to work. I'm not really set up to do it here because now that I've got the shelf in the background, I don't have a flat background anymore. But let's see, I guess like the short version is if you go to the software control, so I have to turn off my upstream keyer. So, well, let me just change it here. So if I change it to chroma, you choose what, so first you set your background layer, which is in this case, the computer, right? Otherwise I could choose like the graphics or a black or color bar. So choose your background layer, choose what you want to be green screened in the upstream key, chroma, right? Fill source. Then I can't change the color while it's on. So let me turn that off. If you sample, this is helpful. So if you click this sample button, notice how this now changed to my camera. If you drag this around, you can kind of see it there. So like, oops, there, I'm dragging that little pixel around and you can see it's kind of moving around on my screen. It's really hard to see, I'm sure. But, right, it's grabbing a color. So I'm gonna grab like this. This is not gonna be good. I've not lit this for green screening. So if you do that, that chooses the color over here, right? So now let me go back here. Oops, and then chroma. Okay, it's working already. So now that I've got that color, the rest of this becomes a matter of dialing it in. So I've got a mask, which I don't need. Flying key is so that you can move it, because I want to be in the corner, not over the whole screen, but I could be on the whole screen. And then it's a matter of figuring out this. So basically you just play with it until it works, really. Like, and again, I do not have lighting in here that is going to make this work well. Also, I realize my shirt is almost the same color as the wall. So my shirt's getting keyed out also. And then of course that light is not the same as the background color. So it looks very different now, which is why it's showing up as well. So it can be tricky to get it right. But you play with these until it looks good. And then the rest of it is making sure that your lighting is good. So like if I were actually trying to use this as a green screen, I would want to get as flat as possible of a green background, or it doesn't matter what color, but flat color background that's not something in your shirt, in your clothing, and then make sure it's well lit. Basically you light the green screen first, and then you light the person in front of it. So like that's why I mean this is not all set up for that, because basically this light is what is casting the light over here. Oh, thanks. Someone changed the light to green. Totally worked. Thanks for that. Who did that? Itty Corey. Appreciate it. That's hilarious. Okay. So so basically you want to light the background, make it as flat and consistent as possible, then put yourself in front of it. One of the things that one of the reasons why it'd be really hard to do here is because I'm actually very close to this wall, and it's hard to cast light on my face that isn't then also spilling onto the wall. And you really want separate lighting sources for both. So I would really want like a separate light that's behind me, not shining onto me, in order to actually do that properly. Let me get out of this so that I don't just look like a floating head over my computer screen. Cool. But yeah, thanks for the super chat. All right. And oh yeah, you know who does have a very good video about this? Is Basic Filmmaker. So Google Basic Filmmaker. Oh yeah, it's like I think it's his top video. This is a great video though, so take a look at that if you yes, he's great, very good explanation, and that is a great way to he goes through step by step. It's not really unique to ATEM Mini Pro. I guess that's the other point to make here, is that it's green screening is its own technique. you look decent. Mediocrity is fashionable. Thanks. All right. Where was I? Kevin says, is there a way to connect the ATEM Mini Pro to live stream from a phone? Not from an iPhone. The iPhone doesn't have the ability to use external cameras. I think Android does, although I don't have one and I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that. But basically, if your device has the ability to use a webcam, then you can use the ATEM Mini Pro. Otherwise, not really. Roland says, I wish Blackmagic would add SIP H323 support to the ATEM Mini Pro so like it could gateway directly into WebEx and Zoom. Yeah, like Zoom, the Zoom Rooms thing, so you can have like a dedicated device. That'd be cool. I wonder if they would ever do that. It's definitely not something that Blackmagic normally does, but that would be a cool idea. Oh, hey, Doug. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining. We did a virtual stream last week, Skype for the moderator and the host, and Zoom for the panel. Oh, yeah, that's a cool idea. Bringing in, so I assume you had like the Zoom grid full screen, so you can switch to that as one of the sources. That is a cool idea. Clifton says, what's the drawback of the ATEM Mini Pro, or would a television studio HD be better for live streaming? Well, okay, so the ATEM Mini Pro, the limits are basically the number of upstream, downstream keyers, right? So you get one upstream, one downstream. The Television Studio has, I believe, 2 of each. Television Studio also has way more inputs and outputs. So it's got 4 HDMI, 4 SDI. All the SDIs are outputs also. And for like loop through or camera control, there's the aux output, so you can actually just pick any of your sources and decide to throw it out another output. There's the program out over HDMI and SDI, and there's a separate multi-view. So like it's just infinitely more flexible for that. The problem with the Television Studio is that it doesn't have a streaming encoder. So you can't push directly from it to YouTube. You have to use a separate device. So you could feed it into an ATEM Mini Pro, for example, or any other H.264 encoder. The other thing, it doesn't have a recorder. So like the ATEM Mini can be either record to USB or be a webcam. That device does not have it. So the Television Studio is really meant for broadcast and live like installations. The ATEM Mini Pro is meant for streaming, right? So they have very different purposes, but I would take a look at what you're actually trying to do and like what you need it for, and use that to inform that decision, because they are both very cool. They're both very good devices, but very different. What I'm hoping, secretly hoping, is that at some point Blackmagic releases an update to the Television Studio model, that whole line, and adds in live streaming and USB recording and USB webcam into it. But we'll see. I doubt it anytime soon. Nathan says, not only 2 ATEMs, but it looks like you have a decorative ATEM Mini behind you. This is the ATEM Mini, not the Pro, and it is decorative right now. I was thinking about using it instead of the Pro here on my desk, and I tried it, but the problem is there's no multi-view, right? So I can't show you a multi-view. And I tried running the HDMI out of my main switcher here into that one, and then so that I could then put it on the screen. But it works. It does work, but it looks like a disaster, because it basically just means that like the multi-view, oh, I did that thing again where I left the other keyer on. It means, let me just switch to this. So it means what you get here is this program window ends up then just cascading and just being like program inside program inside program, because it's like the feedback loop, right? So it is not actually effective at showing you anything. So, yeah. So if I only needed like extra inputs, like for the chat or the Apple TV or the Chromecast, it would actually be a very good secondary, like a backup, just extra inputs there. But it means I wouldn't be able to show you this view of a multi-view. I might end up using it though for over on the desk over there, or the like studio. We'll see. I'm still building the space out. Eddie Corey says, oh, you got the Chromecast working? Yes, I did. It needed a splitter to turn off the HDCP on it, because the Chromecast assumes you're going to be using it to play copyrighted movies and always does HDCP. What's the best way to get HDMI out into my computer? HDMI out from the ATEM Mini into the computer? Well, the easiest way is just using the USB as a webcam, because then it just shows up as a webcam. But if you really do need HDMI into your computer, there's like dedicated devices for this. It's too far away for me to grab it, but there's one that I just got, which is like this tiny little dongle, so just HDMI to USB. There's those kind of things, but honestly, the ATEM Mini is a very good way to just get HDMI into your computer. So hopefully that was the question. Simon, is there a way to subscribe to the live stream event notifications? I keep adding the reminder, but every week it's different, so I keep missing the start of the stream. I'm sorry. I've been trying to do 10 a.m. same time every week. I think there was one week a couple of weeks ago that I changed it to 11 because I had a conflict. I almost changed it today because of Joseph's live stream. But I'm trying to just stick to this time, unless I have something that I really can't move. But I believe if you click the bell, like I know everybody says it on YouTube, and it's really annoying. All the YouTubers keep saying, click the bell to be notified when I have a new video. I really do think that should do it, right? So, the bell icon, click that. Then you should get an email when I go live or push notification on your phone. Egon says, I invite guests via Microsoft Teams and use 2 ATEMs. That way I have 2 DVE keys and can simulate a tiny super source. Nice. Yes, I love it. The side-by-side view that I always want to do requires two upstream keyers or an actual super source device that in the higher end ATEMs. And that's awesome. Guests via MS Teams, I assume that means you're then feeding like the computer screen into one of the ATEMs. Oh, I just saw the super chat, which somehow didn't change my colors yet, my background colors, but thank you, Marlon. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you got something out of that explanation. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you. I will enjoy lunch. Doug says, in regard to using the iPhone as a network connection for an ATEM Mini Pro, a Wi-Fi bridge will turn a Wi-Fi connection into Ethernet. Yeah, I have one of those, and I keep forgetting I need to just like have a pile of these devices around. No, I think it's at home today. This one that I have, I love, is it is the GL iNet. See if I can find a link to it. But what it does is here it is. It takes any Wi-Fi access point or a wired connection, and then provides it out as an Ethernet. It's called a travel router. And this thing is great. So I have it set up as, like it will just connect to my Wi-Fi, my phone's Wi-Fi hotspot when my phone turns on. Although you can actually plug your phone in over USB, which will give it a better connection too. And that way it will, like that's its internet connection, and then it shares it out over Wi-Fi or over Ethernet, which means your ATEM Mini can plug into it, which is super cool. Cool. All right, we are rolling. Let me check time because I need to, do I need to run exactly at 11 or not? Okay, I can go a little longer. I do want to make sure I get through enough of these questions. Oh yeah, and that little travel router supports WireGuard out of the box, which is super cool. So you can actually use it as a VPN server or client. And yeah, it's great. I love it. Lightning to Ethernet connector, that might work. If you can set static IPs on both to the same networks, you might be able to just plug in the iPhone Ethernet directly into the ATEM. I don't think that's going to let you share the iPhone's connection over Ethernet, though. I don't think it does. I don't think the iPhone has the Wi-Fi sharing that way. But it might let you use any of the Strata apps to control the ATEM over that connection. but I don't think it'll do the internet sharing over Ethernet. Richard says, how long do we need to wait for the Raspberry Pi Hyperdeck emulator? Any news? It's I haven't heard any news lately. I know that he's still interested in working on it, but I think if anybody wants to help chip in and try helping out, he might use some help. Let's see, that's called Layout. Yeah. So here is the link to the Hyperdeck emulator. It is open source, still in progress, doesn't quite work yet, still needs some more work. So yeah, if anybody's interested in helping out, please do. Cool. Okay. Roland says the feed wedge out for anybody else. I did just notice that the number of viewers sort of dropped by 10 and then came back. So I think YouTube might be glitching out a little bit. But everything is fine on my end, and I am pushing up a solid stream here. Oh yeah, my funny story about my internet connection at the studio. Remember how I've been saying that it was a 100 megabit? I was getting 100 megabits instead of my gigabit. It turns out that somehow the router, like the fiber connector, Ethernet plugged into my actual router, that link dropped down to 100 megabits instead of a gigabit. Like it's a gigabit, they're both gigabit devices, and somehow it just turned into a 100 megabit connection. So like I went into the admin interface of the router, and it said like, oh, this device is connected at 100 megabit. I'm like, but I know that's a gigabit device. What's going on? So somehow, at some point, they renegotiated the link and decided that 100 megabits was the cap, and that's why I've been limited. So I just unplugged it and plugged it back in, and they renegotiated the Ethernet, and now they're both gigabit to each other, and now I can upload at 800 megabits a second. So that's awesome. Now I can just host live streams entirely out of here instead of YouTube at all. Zeus says, how easy would it be to add macros to buttons on a laptop, and could you show that? Getting into streaming bands, having macros with overlays would be nice to add. So I have another live stream. If you search my channel for macros, I did actually go through a whole process of setting up macros in a couple of other live streams. As far as buttons to control them, I really like this Stream Deck, which this camera keeps turning off and it's really frustrating me. I might have to switch back to my GH5 for this. So let me not show you my whole calendar. The Stream Deck. So this is what I've been using for this show of, all right, focus. I believe in you. So these are the buttons, right? So this gives me buttons that can run all the different macros. The other way that you can do this, though, you don't need this physical device. You can actually also do it with an emulator. So this is what the configuration window looks like. But if you just go and click like mobile buttons, this gives you this web page, which then emulates these buttons, and you can load this up from another device too. So you can either use it on your computer, or you can pull this up on an iPad on your same network and tap these buttons to run all of your macros. So I have a couple of different ones here. This is the one I'm using for this show. But yeah, in order to actually configure them, do check out some of the other videos on my channel, because I did go through I did go through that process a couple times. All right. What light are you using that is changing color? Oh yeah, that's Philips Hue. So this is one of the ones that just sits on the floor. I don't actually like that form factor very much, but it is convenient because it does like sort of shine up on the wall. So but they have a bunch of different ones. But the nice thing about Philips Hue is that it's just sort of out of the box. It just works, and you can connect it to if this then that. Cool. Burn says, Studio's looking nice. Acoustics are better. That's why you're sitting in the corner. No, I'm sitting in the corner because that's how I have two main things I'm doing here, right? So this is the desk that I use for this stream and my other workshops. And then if you, let's see, if you go to, if we go around here, there's the rest of the room, and that is the, really? Why is my exposure not auto adjusting? Okay, something's going on with my camera today. I need to fix poor little camera. But that's where I shoot the other videos, right? So the that gray background, that's my table, and I'm still working on it. It's not great. You might notice those little sound panels. I stuck them onto 2 foot by 3 foot foam boards, and they're like stuck on there. Those are doing something, but the real thing that made the difference was this rug. So that helped a ton. I'm pretty excited about that rug. I like it a lot. I think the colors are pretty cool, and it matches the design of what's going on here. All right, little camera, I'm gonna fix you. You were working fine earlier. All right. Toby says, what do you think is the problem with the ATEM Mini Pro and smaller monitors for multi-view? I don't know, especially because they were supposed to have fixed that that negotiation of frame rates. I'm using this little one down here is a Feel World 4K, and it's not too expensive, but it's like 7 inches. And I have it down here because when I do my other my actual like work streams, I have my this is actually a computer screen, not the ATEM screen. So I have like, this is the screen I'm sharing on Zoom, and then this is the one that I can see my speaker notes, and this is the secondary, of course. But then I want to have the ATEM monitor as well, so I have it down here. But the 11-inch or 10-inch ones, like the Raspberry Pi ones, still haven't been able to figure out why they don't work. It's pretty frustrating because they really should. And I don't know how many more I'm willing to buy in return. Good ear, Bernd. Do you have a gate in your audio input? Yeah, I do. My audio config looks like this. So I've got actually not a gate, but I've got the expander. So that clamps down the silence because there's a little bit of noise here, and then the compressor to bring that down, and then the makeup gain. Without these, it sounds like this, which actually, you know what? Let me know if this sounds better. Maybe this does sound better. I'll just leave it off for the rest of the show. So I'll leave this. This is now unprocessed audio directly from the camera. This microphone is the Movo little camera mic, unpowered. So let me know what you think. Cool. Cajoling says, is that a trophy above the ATEM? No, this is actually a book. It's a book about OAuth RFCs, which is what I do for my work. And this is kind of like a joke book, which is really only funny to about 8 people. It's a joke because it shouldn't be a book that big. Anyway, it's really only funny to 8 people, I swear. Aaron Ray says, how do you resize the image using the downstream keyer? You can't. Downstream keyer does not have the ability to resize the image. It is only the upstream keyer that can resize it. The downstream keyer can only remove the black, so Luma key, right? It can treat black as transparent. No scaling options on that. Can I use the ATEM Mini with a wireless video transmitter such as the Hollyland Mars 400? You absolutely can. I do that as well. I don't have it here, but I have it at home, and it's great. So it gives you a wireless input into the ATEM Mini. Those things are expensive, but they're expensive because there's almost no delay. They're really good. I actually don't have the 400. I have the 300. But it's great. I like it a lot. I don't know how much of a delay. Here, let me drop a link. This is the one I have. That one is the one without the little screen on it, but it works great and it's a little bit cheaper. Okay, people are saying they don't like the audio in the chat. Let me go turn it back on. Good. Well, at least I know that it's doing something. That should be back. Okay, cool. I love that the ATEM Mini has the audio processor in it because, yeah, otherwise I'd have to have another mixer on this desk. But yeah, wireless video over with the ATEM works great. And the only thing I would say is that there is going to be some amount of delay added by those devices. So if you have, like, if you're trying to do 2 close-ups of the same person from 2 angles, they might not match. But other than that, they're close enough that they're good enough for almost everything else. All right, let me see if there's any other questions in here. Nathan Laredo says, I just tested the ATEM Mini Pro does not work as a camera on Android for Google Meet or Google Hangouts. Darn, that's too bad. I wonder why. It's too bad. Lennart says, do you have any recommendations, any tips for cheap, clean HDMI out cameras? I sure do. The one I'm using right now is probably my favorite recommendation for this, which I have not had any problems with at all. Let me drop a link. It is the Lumix G7, and it is $500, including the kit lens. The kit lens is probably good enough. I've actually got a different lens on here, though. I've got the 12 to 35. It has a bit wider aperture, but I love this one because clean HDMI out. You can power it via like a USB power battery. You like stick the battery, like you take out the battery, you plug in this other adapter, and it just runs continuously, continuous power. I have had this thing plugged in and turn on for like 8 hours a day. I just leave it on. I never think about it. It does not overheat at all. It is basically the perfect camera for this because I never have to think about it. And I can put nice lenses on it. And it's got the microphone jack, so you can plug in this little microphone as well. So that is definitely my recommendation there. Cool. All right. Let me see. I've only got a couple more minutes. We shouldn't go too late today. All right. Other questions here. Marlon says, what other software do you recommend other than the HDR graphics? I find a lot of glitches. If you do find glitches, do make a note of them because he is like actively working on this and trying to fix it. So definitely report those. He's very open to feedback. I think his email address is in the app. The other, I haven't used too many other options because a lot of them are very expensive, and not many of them even have the YouTube chat feature, which is my main use for them right now. For like conferences that I do, I typically actually load up everything as still images. I create them in Photoshop, load them up as still images in the ATEM, and use those during the show. So I'm not even like, I don't even need it to be a graphics generator app in order for that to work because I'm doing all that prep work ahead of time. The other one I will say, which I don't have too much experience with, but I hear a lot of good things about it, is Mimo Live. And I know Photo Joseph is going to start using that on his show as well. So take a look at his channel and he'll be talking about it a lot more probably. Jeremy White says, what is the little camera that's giving you problems today? It is my Sony ZV-1, which I've used on so many other streams, and it's never been a problem before. But it just keeps giving me this little overheating icon. It's plugged in via USB, so I don't have a battery power. Maybe if I unplug that, it'll help. Battery's charged now, so yeah, it's a brand new Sony ZV-1. I like it a lot, but I'm not happy that it's not cooperating with me today. I guess it is a little bit warmer in here than normal. Maybe that's what's going on. Okay, I caught up to the audio comments. All right. AD Corey says, I get the OAuth joke, but you're right, I don't find it funny, more sad. Yes, I'm working on it, I promise. OAuth 2.1 is coming out sometime in the future, and it'll be smaller. So, anyway. Doug says, the Hologram Arts wireless have a noticeable delay. Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're filming with it, because, like, yeah, if it's like a spoken dialogue, it's probably noticeable, but I'm typically using it as like an accessory camera where either the people are so far away from it that I don't, like, you can't see their mouths moving anyway, or it's just totally not even that shot that it hasn't been a problem for me. But if your tolerances are very low for that, then yeah. Sammy says, can you use the ATEM Mini Pro with Canon 80D to stream? I don't have any Canon cameras anymore. I have no idea. The thing you have to look for is, there's two things to look for about whether a camera will work for streaming. One, clean HDMI out, absolutely a requirement. I know some of the Canons don't do it, or they only work with like custom firmware, which I definitely don't recommend doing. Some of them do have clean HDMI out, but they tend to be the way more expensive ones. So look for clean HDMI out. Second, you really do want to be able to run it from power, not batteries. Because if you're going to be live streaming for an hour or more, you're going to want to run it off of continuous power. So either that's a camera that is has like a regular USB input, or like power over USB, or power cord in it, or where you can swap out the battery for a block that has a cord running out like this one that can be powered over USB. Speaking of which, just reminded me, after this, think I might get a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I've been thinking about this for a long time, because these are, because I have never had one, and they can be controlled by the ATEM Mini. And I'm really tempted to actually try that out and learn about that whole side of things. So what do you think? Should I get a Blackmagic Pocket 4K? Never having used a Blackmagic camera before. The good news is my main cameras are all Lumix's Micro Four Thirds, so I already have all the lenses for it. So I won't have to buy any new lenses, which is good. So yeah, thinking about it. If I'm gonna make the call today though, because we'll see. People are saying yes, go for it. Didn't regret it. Yeah, and I haven't really even done too much with like color grading and stuff. So that's another good way for me to get into that for the live shows, because you can load LUTs into it live. Yeah, okay. Everybody says to get it, no brainer. Yeah, I should really do it. It'll give me some more stream content. Yeah, I'll be able to do a whole new segment on using the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K with the ATEM Mini Pro, because I have not yet actually used that whole other tab in the interface of controlling cameras. So, but keep your GH5. Yeah, I do love the GH5. I actually have the S. I love that camera, but it's a small movie camera. You have to work into color grading and things like that. Roland says they're huge and unwieldy. The only pocket they fit into. Yeah. It does look big, which was my main like fear of it, I guess. And probably too big that I wouldn't take it like traveling, but the GH5S because it's also like a photo camera, is actually a decent travel camera. Does it do SDI? No, it has HDMI out, which is just it. They use the return channel to be able to send commands from the ATEM into the Blackmagic, so you can control it from the ATEM over HDMI, which is super cool. Arnold from Melbourne. Oh, wow, it's early there. Good morning or good evening. Thanks for watching. What's the benefit of using the smaller ATEM switcher? Do you mean the Mini instead of the Pro? I don't know if there's any benefits of the Mini over the Pro other than the price at this point. Like, it's half the cost, which is definitely a benefit, but it is missing a lot of the features. And but if you don't need those features, definitely get that one because it's so much cheaper. Oh, so Marie says, I don't know if this has already been asked, but can you please tell me how the key button works in the ATEM Mini Pro? It just brings up everything full screen instead of keying it in. So this is probably the main annoyance I have with the ATEM Mini Pro or the Mini, is that the buttons on the device are like not actually that useful because yeah, they're kind of like these weird presets. So like if I, let me go over to my other ATEM. This is why I have the other ATEM. So if I press the key button, I have no idea what's going to happen because it's going to do something. And then if I press the picture-in-picture button, something else happens. So, okay, those are not the default because what's happened is if I go, let me switch over to that one. So connect to my test one. And if we look at the settings, the upstream keyer is set to DVE, fill with the main camera, positioned and scaled with a border. So position, you can see the Y is down. So when I actually press the button, the key button, oh yeah, so this is super confusing. If I press the picture-in-picture button on, it switches to DVE, but doesn't change these. So the what that means is whatever these settings are what will be used. So if you want to, like, you can kind of program it to, like, okay, let's say we actually want to do picture-in-picture, right? So we move it over to the corner, and then we're going to make it not the camera, but we're going to make it the Apple TV. So now this is more like a regular picture-in-picture, right? Now when I press on and off on the button, what it's doing is it's basically hitting this button. So now it works, right? Because once I've programmed this in. But if I press the on button on the key, it's still doing the upstream keyer. However, it switched over to chroma key instead of DVE. So that's kind of weird. Like, I honestly wish the key button would have controlled the downstream keyer, because then you could use that to like turn on and off the overlays that you're doing. But yeah, and they're not reassignable. So if Blackmagic would make those assignable, then I could be like, okay, I want the key on to actually control the downstream keyer. I want, yeah, I don't know. And then yeah, what's even weirder is like when you press the picture-in-picture upstream or picture-in-picture on, it will switch over to the DVE tab and not change these settings. But if you press one of the buttons with the icon in the corner, then it does change those settings. So did you see how those all changed? And now it's up in the corner. So now it positioned it, right? And I can move it around by pressing the 4 corner buttons. So it didn't change this though. So you can, as long as you set this to the right one, that sticks around. And of course, in order to make it go save startup state, and that makes it work across reboots. But that's, yeah. Basically because, so what ends up happening is I'm never actually confident what's going to happen when I press that button, because I don't know what the current state of the rest of those settings are. So because I'm never confident about it, I never use those buttons. And because I never use those, all of the buttons become useless. So I control everything via separate buttons that are running macros, because that I do know what those macros do because I've programmed them. And I know it's going to do all of the right things and move things around to just the way I want it. So yeah, anyway, that's my one gripe with the device. All right. Oh, there's another super chat. Thank you. From Jay Oates, and appreciate it. And from Chris. Any experience hooking a Shure SM7B or Focusrite 3rd gen to the ATEM Mini Pro? I have decent audio equipment, but not sure how to hook it into the ATEM. And then separate question, any thoughts on USB to PC via HDMI cam link? Okay, first question, audio. The ATEM Mini Pro has 1/8 inch audio inputs. So you're gonna wanna make sure those are set into line inputs. And then you can take any line output from another mixer, feed it into the ATEM Mini Pro. The thing to keep an eye out for is ground loops. They're not balanced inputs and they're kind of sensitive. And I did a demo of this last week, but when I play music off of this iPod, when this is plugged into power, then there's a buzz on the line. So depending on the mixer, the audio interface, that may or may not be a problem. So that's something to watch out for. The other, yeah, I guess, so yeah, what you would do is take the Focusrite, the main like 1/4 inch outs, and you need to drop them down to 1/8 inch. And that should work if you use the line outs into the ATEM Mini Pro. But go into the audio settings in the ATEM Mini and make sure it's set to line and not mic. Otherwise, bad things will happen. Then yeah, for the USB to PC versus HDMI cam link. The USB to the PC works fine. I have noticed that the colors shift compared to the HDMI out. What I don't actually know is how the colors compare to using the cam link. I don't have a cam link because they're all out, but I have other HDMI capture cards. It would be interesting to do a side-by-side comparison of the USB webcam out versus HDMI out to a capture card. The reason that I don't do that is because I don't run HDMI into a capture card like ever, because I want the HDMI out to feed my monitor here, and I want the multi-view out on the monitor. And there's only one HDMI out on the ATEM Mini, so that's my multi-view, and I want that more than I want a different quality into the computer. I will say, like, I haven't really heard any complaints about the video quality that's coming over the webcam output. So for like, Zoom meetings and stuff. So I would just do that. Okay. Arnold says, can I use a DSLR camera for live streaming, or do I require a Blackmagic camera? No, you can totally use a DSLR. Anything that has HDMI out, you can use for this. All right. Okay, I think I'm getting to the end here, coming up on an hour and a half. Let me, and my chat is just, I'm annoyed at the chat today because my H2R isn't wrapping the text, so they're really hard to read. So it's getting a little bit hard to keep up with the chat. Sorry about that. Oh, Dan says, you mentioned using a Stream Deck with the Raspberry Pi. Elgato doesn't show a Linux download. Yes, you want to use the app called Companion by Bitfocus, and it's a totally separate app that sort of takes over instead of the Elgato app. And then you can do all sorts of fun stuff with that, like controlling the ATEM, but also anything else that you can think of. I'm happy that I'm not the only one who's complaining about these weird key buttons. Yeah, it's too bad. Maybe there are just buttons, so maybe they will eventually put out a firmware update where we can configure them. Cool. Okay. I'm gonna call it here. Thank you all for watching, and I really appreciate the super chats. We'll be back next week. With any luck, it'll be the same time. But again, if you want to make sure you don't miss it, and I know this sounds redundant because everybody says it at the end of YouTube videos, but that's because it works. subscribe, click the bell to be notified so that when I do go live, you get a little push notification and maybe even an email. And hopefully you then will jump in very quickly when I'm live next time. Yes, thank you. Thank you all for watching, and bring more questions back next week. And with any luck, I will have something new to show. Probably not a camera. Probably won't come that fast. We'll see. But I'm also hopefully going to have a video coming out this week talking about some interesting new devices I've been testing out. So again, stick around for that. And yeah, thank you all for joining. I will see you all next week.